I never thought I'd be telling this story. 30 years. That's how long Kathy and I were married. We met in college, both fresh-faced and optimistic. I was studying mechanical engineering, and she was in literature. We were opposites in a lot of ways, but it worked. We raised two wonderful kids, paid off our house, and built what I thought was a solid life together. Then one evening, while she was making tea and I was scrolling through the news, she said something that made my stomach drop. I joined a book club. I looked up. That's great. It's not that kind of book club, she added. It's more like a feminist discussion group. We talk about the patriarchy, gender roles, that kind of stuff. I didn't think much of it. Kathy always liked a good debate. But I had no idea that one meeting would be the first domino to fall in the collapse of my entire life. What I didn't know was that something in her had already changed, and I was the last to see it. At first, the changes were subtle. Kathy started spending more time away from home. What used to be cozy evenings together turned into long nights where she'd be out with the girls. She'd come home late, sometimes after midnight, with a fire in her eyes that hadn't been there in years. Not the romantic kind of fire, something colder, sharper. Conversations between us grew strained. I'd ask about her day and get vague replies. I'd try to share things from mine, and she'd glance at her phone. It was like I was losing her one conversation at a time. Then came the first real blow. One Saturday morning, over breakfast, she looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "I feel like I've been living someone else's life." I didn't know what she meant. "What do you mean by that?" She sighed and twisted her wedding ring on her finger. "For 30 years, I've been your wife, the mother of your children. But I don't know who I am outside of that." I tried to listen. I really did. But everything in me was screaming, "This isn't you. Where's my wife?" I suggested counseling. She scoffed. "You think a man in a suit can fix 3 decades of me not being true to myself?" Her words didn't just hurt. They rattled something deep inside me. Was she really saying the life we built was a lie? That night, I sat in the dark long after she went to bed, staring at nothing, wondering what I missed. I thought about the vacations we took, the nights we stayed up laughing, the years we struggled and supported each other. But those memories didn't matter anymore. Something was slipping through my fingers, and I had no idea how to stop it. A few weeks later, Kathy dropped the bomb. "I'm leaving," she said, standing in the doorway of our bedroom with a suitcase at her side. I was frozen. "What do you mean you're leaving?" She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She spoke as if it was a long overdue dentist appointment. Calm, cold, detached. "I need space. I need to find myself. I've spent too long being someone I'm not. I want to live for me now." "After 30 years?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Now you decide this?" She looked me in the eye and said something that still echoes in my head. "I gave you 30 years, Robert. I think I've earned the right to give a few to myself." The words crushed me. Not because she wanted independence, but because she made it sound like our life had been a burden, like I had chained her to a kitchen counter for 3 decades. I didn't stop her. Maybe I should have. Maybe I should have begged. But something inside me, my pride, my heartbreak, my disbelief, kept me glued to the floor as she wheeled her suitcase out the door and out of our life. That night, I sat on the side of the bed where she used to sleep, staring at the imprint on the mattress. It already looked emptier. In 30 years, we'd never spent more than a week apart. Now I had no idea if I'd ever see her again. And the worst part? A tiny, shameful part of me wondered if she was already seeing someone else. The silence in the house was deafening. I'd wake up and reach for her side of the bed, forgetting she wasn't there. Meals felt pointless. I started talking to myself just to hear a voice in the house. Then, 3 weeks after she left, I found out she'd started a YouTube channel. Yeah, a YouTube channel. Someone from my office messaged me a link with the words, "Is this your Kathy?" I clicked it. There she was, Kathy, in soft lighting, hair styled like she hadn't done in years, sitting cross-legged on a pastel couch, speaking into the camera like she was auditioning for Oprah. "Hi everyone, I'm Kathy. After 30 years of marriage, I decided to finally live my truth. I realized I had lost my identity in the roles of wife and mother. This channel is my journey to freedom, femininity, and finding joy in independence." She smiled. She looked happy. And I sat there watching, heart pounding, wondering how long she had been planning all this. She talked about our marriage in vague terms. I was expected to cook, clean, support his dreams, but where was mine? I was invisible. Now, I'm choosing to be seen. I wanted to scream. I never made her do any of that. We built a life together. I thought we were partners. But now, to her growing online audience, I was the villain in her freedom story. I didn't sleep that night. I scrolled through the comments on her videos, strangers praising her bravery, calling her a queen, saying "you go girl," like they knew anything about our life. It wasn't just that she left. It was that she rewrote our story and deleted me from it. After the video started getting traction, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Old friends, neighbors, even my sister called, asking if it was true. Some were gentle, others were blunt. Did you really make her give up her dreams? Why didn't you fight harder to keep her? You should have seen the signs. Everyone had something to say. Everyone knew what I should have done differently. And the worst part? I had no idea how to defend myself. Because how do you fight back against a narrative you're not even part of? I never told anyone what really went on behind closed doors. I protected her even when she made me feel invisible. When she got overwhelmed, I stepped up. When she went through her depressive episodes, I held her every night without judgment. I was never perfect, but I sure as hell wasn't the oppressor she painted me to be. And yet, in her new world of freedom, I was just a footnote. She kept posting weekly videos, book reviews on empowering feminist literature, vlogs about yoga retreats and finding her inner goddess. She even started selling merchandise with slogans like "Unwife Yourself" and "Freedom is Feminine." It was surreal. My kids didn't say much. They were grown and out of the house, and while they tried to stay neutral, I could tell they were uncomfortable with the whole thing. My daughter even asked me once, "Dad, are you okay seeing her like this?" I didn't know how to answer. Because no, I wasn't okay. But I also knew something I hadn't admitted until that moment. I didn't want her back. Not this version of her. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by a stranger with a camera and a catchphrase. About 2 months after Kathy left, something in me snapped, or maybe clicked is the better word. I came home from work, tossed my keys on the kitchen counter, and stood there in the silence of my empty house. The same silence that used to feel like punishment suddenly felt like peace. I didn't miss the tension. I didn't miss walking on eggshells, afraid one wrong word would trigger another existential crisis. I didn't miss being resented for simply existing as a husband who tried his best. So that night, I grabbed a box and started clearing the closet. Not out of spite, not as revenge, but because I realized I was ready to start over. I packed her leftover clothes, the framed photo of us on our honeymoon, even the ceramic mug she always used for chamomile tea. I didn't throw them away. I just packed them up and put them in the attic, like closing a chapter I'd reread 1,000 times too many. The next morning, I took myself out for breakfast. Alone. It felt strange but good. I didn't have to ask what she wanted. I didn't have to wait for her to be in the mood for anything. I just chose for me. I went for a walk afterward and ended up in a small park near the elementary school. There was a bench in the shade, and I sat there, breathing in the early autumn air. And that's when I met Maya. She was sitting 2 benches over, marking papers with a red pen. A half-empty coffee beside her, a bag that said Lincoln Elementary, and a tired smile that somehow felt warmer than anything I'd known in years. We exchanged a few words, nothing deep. Just the kind of small talk 2 strangers might make over a shared sunrise. But something about her calm presence lingered with me all day. I didn't know it yet, but I had just met the woman who would remind me what it meant to be seen. Not for what I provided, not for what I represented, but simply for who I was. I ran into Maya again the following weekend, at the same park, same bench, same stack of graded math quizzes in her lap. We talked longer that time. She told me she was a 5th-grade teacher, recently divorced, no kids, just her and a cat named Miso. She laughed when she said it, but there was a sadness behind her eyes I recognized all too well. I didn't bring up Kathy, not at first. I didn't want to dump my pain on a stranger. But somehow, Maya made it easy to open up. Over the next few weeks, we kept seeing each other, always by accident, always in that park. Until one day, she brought an extra coffee. I figured if we're going to keep pretending we just happened to be here at the same time, she said, handing me the cup, might as well make it intentional. That was the beginning of something real. It wasn't fireworks and movie romance. It was quiet, gentle. 2 people with bruised hearts finding space to breathe again. Maya didn't need saving. She didn't want a project. She wanted partnership. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was being auditioned for a role I never signed up for. The more time I spent with her, the more I realized how exhausted I'd been trying to hold my old marriage together. With Maya, there were no games, no roles, no hidden expectations dressed up as empowerment. Just honesty. And it was during one of our walks that I said it out loud for the first time. I'm finally letting go of Kathy. Maya stopped and looked at me. How does that feel? Like exhaling after holding my breath for 30 years. We didn't say anything else for a while. We didn't need to. Because some truths don't need applause, they just need air. Just when I thought I was moving forward, the past decided to knock, with a ring light and a fresh coat of lipstick. One evening, I got a call from my son. Dad, did you see Mom's new video? My stomach tightened. I hadn't looked at her channel in weeks. I thought I was done giving her that kind of space in my life. No. Should I? He hesitated. She's talking about you. By name. I opened YouTube against my better judgment, typed her name, and there it was. Why I regret leaving my husband, a hard truth. I clicked. There she was, looking straight into the camera, softer than usual. The tone was different, less fire, more sorrow. She started slow. This isn't easy to admit, but I think I owe it to the women who follow me, and maybe even to myself. I made a mistake. She spoke about how freedom felt exciting at first, but over time, it became isolating. How chasing validation online didn't heal the emptiness inside. How she thought stepping away would bring her happiness, only to realize she had confused restlessness with wisdom. And then the part that really hit. My husband, Robert, was never the villain. He was steady. He was kind. And I see now that I projected my discontent onto the one person who loved me unconditionally. I paused the video, not because I was emotional, but because I wasn't. I expected anger, vindication, something. But instead, I felt nothing. Maybe a flicker of pity. Maybe even a twinge of respect for her honesty. But the pain? Gone. Kathy wasn't the same woman anymore. Neither was I. And no tearful confession could unburn the bridge between us. That chapter was over. And I was already writing a new one with someone who loved me in the present, not through the fog of regret. 2 weeks after the video went live, I got an email from Kathy. The subject line was simple. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time before opening it. The message itself was short, almost nervous in tone. Hi, Robert. I've been thinking about everything. About us. I know I hurt you deeply, and I'm not proud of how I left things. I've done a lot of soul-searching lately, and I realize I threw away something rare and beautiful. I don't expect anything, but I would love to meet. Just talk. No pressure. I miss you. Kathy. For a split second, part of me, the one still wearing the ghost of our 30-year bond, felt the weight of her words. But then I thought of Maya, of the quiet mornings making coffee together, of her laugh when she couldn't fold a fitted sheet, of how she always looked me in the eye when I spoke, like what I said actually mattered. I thought of how I felt around her, seen, heard, whole. Kathy and I had history, but Maya and I had life. I didn't reply to Kathy's email, not because I hated her. I didn't, but because some doors need to stay closed, no matter how many times someone knocks. That night, I told Maya about the email. She didn't flinch. She didn't get insecure or jealous. She just nodded and said, that must have been hard to read. It was, I admitted, but also weirdly freeing. We sat in silence for a moment, the kind that feels like understanding rather than absence. I had finally moved on, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. And there was no going back. A month after Kathy's email, I saw her name trending again. This time, not from a friend or my son. YouTube itself recommended the video. Title: What I Lost When I Chose Myself, and Why It Wasn't Worth It. Curiosity got the better of me. I clicked. She looked tired. Not just physically, but spiritually drained. The spark she once flaunted in her first few Freedom Journey videos was gone. She didn't wear makeup. No fancy backdrops. Just her and the raw weight of consequences. She spoke slowly, carefully. This will probably be my last video. When I started this channel, I thought I was stepping into my power. I thought I was finally choosing me. But what I didn't understand was that I already had power. I had a husband who loved me, a family, a home, a life built on partnership and quiet loyalty. I didn't need to burn it down to feel seen. I just needed to speak up sooner, or maybe listen better. She paused and swallowed hard before continuing. I became addicted to validation, to applause from people who didn't know me. And now, I'm alone. The screen cut to black, and the video ended without music, outro, or any call to action. Just silence. I sat there for a while, stunned, not by her regret, but by the finality of it. This was the woman who once said I was her jailer. Now she called me her sanctuary. But it came too late. I didn't feel smug. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt peace. Because I no longer needed her apology to validate my worth. I had already built something better, something real, with someone who never needed to lose me in order to appreciate me. Life with Maya wasn't dramatic, and that's exactly what I loved about it. We spent weekends exploring antique shops, cooking messy dinners, binge-watching documentaries we barely understood. She'd grade papers at the kitchen table while I worked on the old car I kept putting off for years. It was quiet, uncomplicated, safe. One morning, we were walking through the farmer's market when I noticed the way she held my hand. Firm, confident, without hesitation. That's when I knew. Not because she was perfect, not because she saved me, but because I could finally be myself around someone again and not feel like I had to apologize for it. So, I did something I hadn't done in over 3 decades. I proposed. It wasn't grand. No cameras. No audience. Just me, her, and the bench where we first met, under a soft autumn sky. I had the ring in my pocket for weeks, waiting for the moment to feel right. And when I looked over at her, brushing hair out of her face with that tired but beautiful smile, I realized the right moment wasn't about timing. It was about knowing. Maya, I said, voice shaky but certain. I lost myself in a marriage that asked me to shrink. With you, I've grown back. I want to build something with you, not as a fix for the past, but as a promise for the future. She blinked, then smiled, then whispered the only word I needed. Yes. And in that simple, quiet moment, I found home again. We kept the wedding small, close friends, a few colleagues, Maya's sister, my son and daughter. No spotlight, no extravagance, just vows under a canopy of trees in a public garden we both loved, with birds singing louder than the cheap speaker we brought for music. When I looked into Maya's eyes as we exchanged vows, I didn't think once about Kathy. Not because I had forgotten the pain, but because I had made peace with it. Kathy had been a major chapter in my life, but Maya was the story I chose to keep writing. My daughter hugged me after the ceremony and whispered, "You look lighter than I've ever seen you." My son nodded, glass in hand, and said simply, "You deserve this, Dad." We danced under string lights and drank cheap champagne. Maya accidentally smeared frosting on her dress, and I got frosting on my nose trying to kiss her. It was imperfectly perfect and completely ours. Later that night, as we walked to the car hand in hand, Maya said, "You know, you never told me what made you want to marry me." I squeezed her hand. "Because you never made me feel like I had to earn your love. It was just there. Effortless. Honest. Free." She smiled, rested her head on my shoulder, and whispered, "Let's never lose that. We won't." Because we both knew what it felt like to be unseen, and we chose each other with eyes wide open. 6 months into my new marriage, I received a handwritten letter. That alone was strange. Who even sends letters anymore? It was from Kathy. The envelope was neat. My name written in her familiar cursive, one I hadn't seen since old birthday cards. I stood in the kitchen, staring at it, heart steady, not nervous, just curious. Inside, it was just one page. No drama, no bitterness. Just her words, quiet and raw. "Dear Robert, this will be my last message to you. I wanted you to know that I watched your wedding video. Yes, your daughter sent me a clip. I cried through all of it. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I just want to say thank you. For everything. For loving me when I didn't love myself. For being patient. For trying. I blamed you for my emptiness when it was never yours to carry. I thought leaving would free me, but I confused noise with peace. I hope Maya knows what she has. And I hope you never feel invisible again. Goodbye, Robert." Kathy. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and placed it in the back of my desk drawer, not out of sentiment, but closure. There was no anger in me. No smugness. Just a strange sense of clarity. That letter didn't reopen wounds. It closed the last one that hadn't fully healed. Kathy had finally said goodbye. And so had I. It's funny how life breaks you just enough to rebuild you stronger. Looking back, I don't hate Kathy. I don't resent the book club, the videos, the public unraveling of our marriage. I see now that she was lost, and so was I. We just didn't know how to find each other anymore. Sometimes love doesn't end in betrayal or hatred. Sometimes it just expires. Quietly, while you're both too busy trying to pretend it hasn't. But here's what I learned. Love isn't supposed to make you feel small. Real partnership doesn't ask you to give up your identity just to keep the peace. You don't have to be anyone else's idea of a man or a husband to be worthy of love. Maya taught me that. Or maybe she reminded me. Now, I wake up to someone who chooses me, not out of habit, not out of fear, but out of genuine connection. And every day, I choose her right back. We laugh. We fight fair. We listen. I don't need a million views to know I'm valuable. I don't need to prove anything to people online. I have something far rarer: peace, purpose, and a partner who sees me. To anyone listening who's been through what I have, let me tell you, losing someone isn't always the worst thing that can happen. Staying lost in something that no longer sees your worth, that's the real tragedy. Let them go. Mourn what was. And then, when you're ready, build again. Because sometimes, the second life is better than the first. Freedom doesn't come from leaving love behind. It comes from choosing the kind of love that lets you grow and choosing it every single day. If this story moved you, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments what moment hit home for you. Thanks for listening.